Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to look at how to absolutely transform the way we learn. We're talking about moving from just sitting there as a passenger in a classroom to actually becoming an active explorer of knowledge. We're going to dig into the fascinating science behind accelerated learning. So, get comfortable and get ready to upgrade how your brain processes information. Have you ever opened up a massive textbook? Especially when you hit those middle school years, looked at the sheer avalanche of chapters, dates, and formulas, and just panicked? Well, if so, you are definitely not alone. Even our guide for today, Captain Spark, standing in his virtual library surrounded by countless books and scrolls, gets totally overwhelmed by the huge volume of information out there. It's a seriously heavy burden when you feel like every single detail matters equally, right? So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the Master Explorer mindset, unlock the 20% core, open up our learning toolkit, learn to embrace productive struggle, and finally, graduate as a super explainer. Let's dive in. Part 1. The Master Explorer mindset, going from overwhelmed to empowered. Okay, so this is where everything begins. There's a huge fundamental shift we need to make today. The old, incredibly painful way of learning, it's trying to memorize every single detail. It's exhausting, and frankly, it just doesn't work long term. The new paradigm, the accelerated learning way, is mastering the 20% core. It means prioritizing the essential, current grade-level skills rather than dragging yourself through an agonizing review of every past detail you've ever learned. A passive student just lets the avalanche bury them, but an active investigator, they take charge. Part 2. Unlocking the 20% core, the master key. The 20% core refers to the few, super important ideas that actually give us 80% of our understanding of any subject. This is rooted in the famous Pareto principle, and we are completely shifting the paradigm here. You literally don't need to know every single thing on the page right away. You just need to deeply understand the vital few concepts that hold the whole topic together. It's basically the ultimate tool to filter out the noise. Just look at how brilliantly this illustrates the concept. Notice how small that 20% slice is compared to the huge, overwhelming 80% of other details. By focusing your energy and brain power on just that golden fraction of the material, you yield massive comprehension results. You prioritize the stuff that's absolutely necessary to stay on track for your grade level without drowning in all the rest. So let's look at how this actually works in the real world. Subjects get incredibly rich with details in grades 5 through 8. If you're studying, say, the American Revolution, a passive student tries to memorize every date, every single general, every minor skirmish. But an investigator, they look for the 2 or 3 main reasons that truly sparked the conflict. Things like taxation without representation. That is a core idea. And once you have that main spark, the other details just naturally fall into place around it. We see this exact same thing in math too, through what's called just-in-time support. If you're moving into decimals and percentages, you do not need to review every past worksheet you've ever done. No way. Your 20% core is really just understanding that fractions represent parts of a whole and knowing how to simplify them. If you master those specific core ideas, advancing to decimals becomes incredibly easy. Why? Because you have the exact foundation you need, right exactly when you need it. So, the absolutely crucial point here is this. Experts don't try to memorize everything. Instead of rote memorization, experts understand big ideas. They assimilate knowledge into overarching themes, generalizations, theories, and laws. By hunting for that 20% core, you are literally training your brain to recognize patterns and think exactly like a true subject matter expert. How cool is that? Section 3. The Explorer's Learning Toolkit. Our tools are accelerated learning. Now we're opening up the backpack to look at the specific, actionable techniques you're going to use to handle that core in your daily studies. First up is the Feynman technique. This is the absolute premier tool for breaking down complex ideas. Basically, you take a complex idea, you force yourself to simplify it, and then you explain it as if you were talking to a total beginner, or, maybe a really patient golden retriever. If you stumble or find yourself using confusing jargon, well, it means you haven't quite found the core yet. It forces clarity over memorization. Next up, we have brain maps. This is a visual learning tool used to connect different pieces of knowledge and recognize broader patterns. Remember when we said experts assimilate knowledge into key themes? Well, brain maps are exactly how you do that on paper. By drawing lines and finding the visual relationships between concepts, you are physically training your brain to see the big picture. It's like putting together a giant puzzle. Rounding out our toolkit is your real secret weapon, spaced repetition. Look, cramming the night before a test is a passive student's game. It simply vanishes from your brain a week later. Spaced repetition means reviewing information at gradually increasing intervals. You review it a day later, then 3 days later, then a week later. This is the scientific difference between just barely passing a quiz and actually locking in that core for true long-term memory retention.
Section 4, embracing productive struggle, wiring the brain.
Now, as you use these tools, you are going to hit some friction. That's a given. Our natural instinct is usually to just give up when learning gets hard, right? But we really need to reframe academic difficulty entirely. The struggle isn't a sign that you aren't smart enough. It's actually a sign that you're actively building new connections in your brain. We call this productive struggle. By wrestling with a concept to find its core, you are physically strengthening your neural pathways.
And to power through that struggle, we rely on specific expert thinking habits. Critical questioning, always asking why and how. Persistence, sticking with it even when the textbook seems incredibly dense. Reflection, thinking about how you're learning, not just what you're learning. And active recall, testing yourself without looking at the answers. These habits guarantee a much deeper understanding of the material.
Section 5. Becoming a super explainer, the final boss. The ultimate truth of mastery is this. You solidify your learning and build absolute, incredible confidence by explaining concepts clearly to someone else. Becoming a super explainer makes the entire learning process way more engaging. And most importantly, it's the absolute proof that you've truly captured and understood that 20% core. So here is Captain Spark's final actionable mission for you. Step 1, start your next big lesson in any subject. Step 2, and this is crucial, move away from the textbook and grab a completely blank piece of paper. And step 3, write down what you think are the 2 or 3 master keys that explain almost everything else about that topic. You'll be absolutely amazed at how much clearer everything becomes when you filter your reading through this lens. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. What 20% will you unlock today? You've got the tools and you've got the mindset. Embrace the productive struggle and become the master explorer you're absolutely meant to be.